was doing things relative to the arts, because I had the story of that's the only way you're a true artist, is this every last drop of you is in that. And so that's really, I really had that belief. So I don't know if that's universal, but I know for me, until I was in my 30s, I only thought that from the time I was a teenager to that.
Welcome to Point to Rise, your podcast that gives you permission to dream big, take messy action, and turn your talent into profit while turning your back on perfection. My name is Susanne high performance and mindset coach, former international ballerina, profitable entrepreneur, and founder of Point to Rise, a movement designed to empower dancers. It is my mission to use my own story as an inspiration for today's generation of dancers. And now sit back, stretch, warm up, or zip your coffee and love learning how much it matters to point at yourself first to rise to all that you are capable of. Computer. Christy, good morning, my love. Welcome to another episode of the Money and Arts in our Point to Rise podcast. It's yours now too. There you go. We talk about money and the arts. What are the beliefs and how you and I on our separate journeys have started breaking through all of these beliefs, and we want to share them with you. How was your week, my love?
My week was great. It was very, very peaceful this week. Not a lot to report. I really have been diving more into reading. I'm committed. Actually, Jay and I made a commitment for February of things that we're going to surrender and things that we are looking at, personal goals and physical goals and all that. So one of my surrenders is online scrolling. So more reading, less being what I say plugged in, because sometimes I literally feel plugged in. So I removed a lot of unnecessary part. My business requires me to be online, but anything else outside of that, I removed myself, and I spent more time reading this week. And it was just wonderful, because it's just such a pastime that I love, that when things get, schedules get full, that's the first thing to go to the wayside. So I've picked it back up and made that a priority. So yeah. How about
Beautiful.
you?
Oh, what about me? So it was a very full week. I found myself completely in love with having interviews and the podcast. I've learned so much on how you can actually have a podcast as a business, how you can make it as a business. What do you need to make it as a business? And that lights me up. Like finding new people, sharing their story, connecting with them, like something that I was so scared of a few months ago. Yeah.
So awesome.
It's a big aha moment for me, because while reading The Big Leap, I was like, oh my gosh, I actually really truly took a leap here into perhaps out of my comfort zone, into my zone of excellence. Not excellence, genius. And, once this becomes my zone of excellence, then there's the next step.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So it kind of ties into what we're talking about then today.
Yes. Yeah. Fighting or reaching your upper limit, regardless on where you are. And that has like really, really straight correlation to your earning capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation yesterday with somebody I used to work with, and he has a huge project in the mix, and he had interns that helped him to crowdfund. Okay. And here's what came up. They all of them were not able to get more than $1,000 each of them through the crowdfunding, through their own crowdfunding efforts, platform, etc. All of them. I was like, well, because that's their blueprint. That's all they think they're capable of. They have reached their upper limit. And well, how do you feel about that? Like, have you experienced that? Because for me, like, oh my gosh, it just became so clear to me. This is what not at times, most of the time is actually holding us back to get more because we are not able to break through that glass ceiling because we're not aware of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we all have an inner thermostat that's set to a certain degree of what we believe is the limit to our love, success, any of the things that come to our lives. We all have a thermostat that's set, and until we have the awareness to do otherwise, unconsciously we will, yes, create things in our life that will only be at that limits and the extent of wherever our thermostat is.
Right. Wherever our level of
Yes.
excellence is, right? Like if we're looking at you and I as dancers, like there was the limit, that was our level of excellence where we didn't think there's anything above that for us for many reasons, unworthiness or however we want to look at it. And with that came our ability to make money.
Right.
Because if we're holding ourselves, if we're fighting for our limits, then we're also fighting for our capacity or earning capacity or ability even,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we're comfortable here.
Mhm. I like the word you said, fighting. It's we're fighting for the story that has either been put on us or we've put on ourselves of the unworthiness, feeling flawed in some way. Maybe there's something from abandonment. All of those things set a story and set a scene for us. And then really, it's a lot of times you can get in that victim mentality where you want to fight to justify the hurt because it's natural to feel that hurt, but it's everyone's choice to either fight to keep that or to gain a level of awareness to then set your thermostat to a different degree.
Okay, now let's play around with this, with this. Let's play around with this a little bit. When we're looking at the thermostat that is set for us as artists, I feel that box is really tight.
Yeah.
There's so many not boundaries, they're not healthy boundaries in my opinion, but there are a lot of things that this is how it should be and this is how it's been, and if we change it, nothing good is going to come out of it. And I feel that if we would actually give ourselves the grace to explore what could be in our zone of excellence, genius, what would that look like? Who would we have to become as a collective? I feel maybe not so many companies would be struggling right now. I feel that perhaps people that are employed in the arts would not have to go and work at McDonald's, but they would have other streams of income already set up. So I had this conversation this morning with my husband on our walk. We were talking about Ryan Reynolds. Love the guy. Ryan, if you're listening to this podcast, love to connect, honestly. I love his wisdom and I love his humor and how he delivers his message. Now, this man has like so many other businesses that he runs and is the CEO of. If we're looking at The Rock, if we're looking at Matthew McConaughey, if we're looking at, oh gosh, Will Smith, Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
They all do not stand on just one leg. And let me tell you that becoming an actor, making it in the industry, getting where they are at, requires a lot of time, a lot of work on themselves, etc. Just like any other athlete or dancer for that matter. Yet they have managed to open up their mindset and to understand that that can go at any given point. I will not be in anymore. I will not be the favor or flavor of the year anymore. And then what? So they have figured out that having multiple streams of income and having that money work for them is the way to go. Now, my question here, long winded, is why we're not figuring this out as dancers or artists. Like, why are we clinging on to this belief that this is all we can do? We have to surrender ourselves to the art. Yeah, you can do that. You can work your 12 hours, but you can also work another hour on something else. I
Yeah.
see you nodding.
Yeah, I'm nodding a lot. I'll speak for me because
Yes.
I can say that I absolutely was in that position up until about 3 years ago, where I was just tunnel vision in entertainment. So for me at the time, I adopted the story that I was not a serious artist unless I was all encompassed in my profession and strictly in entertainment. So I might have had times where I was performing professionally in a show, and I was also teaching a pre-professional company, setting, choreographing or directing a musical for them, or teaching dance classes or something while I was performing. So that was really the only thing that I saw as multiple streams coming in, was doing things relative to the arts, because I had the story of that's the only way you're a true artist, is this every last drop of you is in
In.
in that. And so that's really I really had that belief. So I don't know if that's universal, but I know for me, until I was in my 30s, I only thought that from the time I was a teenager to that. So that was really my perspective. They were just I felt like it would be taking me away from I was very serious, the seriousness of being the artist that I was. So I held on to that identity, is what I look at it like now. Is that
That was
that's
your thermostat. That was your upper limit, right? Okay. And with that came your capacity to earn. Like you really hit that ceiling of there is no. Do you know how we're chasing the money? Like every week we know these are our income sources and that's what I get in the bank and I'm going to live off of that, versus changing the perspective of how much do I want to earn and how am I going to get there?
yeah.
Okay, now what I really wanted to say totally slipped my mind. Um, uh, uh, Okay, so where got it? Where did that belief come from? Can you trace it back?
No.
No, that's
I
okay. Sis.
Well, for me, that just seemed to be my personality, because I
Mhm.
I always took everything so seriously. Um, everything was so serious. So I think there was just a part, I'm an all in type of person, and sometimes that
But
might be clouded in that perspective of that.
but can't you be all in and then some?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
okay.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
just clarify that. I was
My
like,
all in meant like everything else goes on the wayside, and I only focus on that. So I
right.
definitely had an extreme perspective about it. But I mean, even the examples around me were of such as well. So my
Mm.
teachers, directors, or choreographers, Other fellow performers, it was like, unless you were in between shows or in between a gig, then you would do the hustle, do the survival jobs in the city. But that was it. There was never any other passion project on the side or another stream of income on the side. So I think it was also the examples around me as well.
Right. That was your thermostat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same for me. Like my years in Berlin, oh my gosh. I mean, 13 months of salary.
Yeah.
Like, it was very comfortable. Um, I I wasn't really, or I did not adapt the mindset of thinking outside the box or asking myself other questions. I was in that bubble that lived the same way, and I did not dare. Now, granted, we didn't have the internet at that time. It was just starting. Um, to look outside and what are these other people doing?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so not I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm using that as an example. Like, if you find yourself in that kind of mindset, know where that this is leading you to.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to, you will always relive the same day. You will find yourself in your 30s probably quite unhappy, and perhaps some sort of rock bottom opening up for you, which there's nothing wrong with it. However, we're here to give you some tools so you may have a jump start, so
Yeah.
you may not have that um, rock bottom or that feeling of completely being lost come to you.
Yeah. And that actually sparked something, is that really was the catalyst to open my eyes to something else, was that I entered my 30s, like you said, and you know, I would have fellow performers who were 20 next to me and we're making the same amount. And so regardless of, because that's the other thing, at least what I experienced in entertainment, the amount of years, the length of your resume doesn't necessarily dictate what you're making. Because if you work at a, if you're new to a company or you go to another theater, or the show that you're in, if it's the ensemble gets paid whatever it gets paid, no matter what. It's based on roles or based on whatever. So if you're on the ensemble and you're 31 and you're on the ensemble and you're 19, just out of a conservatory or secondary school, or right out of just living in the city and getting a job, that's the way it is. And I started to look at that and say, well,
Hmm.
this is okay. Maybe, this is okay at 20, but is this married with a husband in my 30s? Is this it? Is this it? And for me, again, I will speak to me, not make this a universal thing. For me, it started to, not only did the industry wear on me, but that part of it wore on me too, where I didn't have the same enjoyment. It felt a lot different over a decade later.
It felt for me like there was nowhere else to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you can get the principal contract. Yes, you can go and guest teach here and there, but you still are trading time for money. Like,
Yes.
your time that is so valuable, you are trading that for money. I want to bring up something on this note. I did a little bit of research, and the average salary, yearly salary for female dancers in the United States is anywhere between $25,000 and $28,000. And for a male dancer, anywhere between 40 and 42. Yeah. Perhaps another topic for another episode. However, I found that very interesting and thought provoking. And not that I didn't know about it, but we all
I
know
didn't
this is not right.
know.
No,
I didn't
right.
realize that actually.
So, and therefore, I'm saying, hey, ladies, even if we're just looking at how much time you're spending in the studio learning your profession and what you're earning, is mind boggling to me.
Yes.
Like, it is not okay.
No.
I understand that so much has to change in order to correct that. Um, but it also starts with us, with every single one that's in that profession, with not accepting the standards, with being knowledgeable of what like your base salary should be, with knowing contractual arrangements, like all of these things. You're not just there to dance. We understand that that is exactly what you want to do, and there's nothing closer to your heart, and there's nothing you wouldn't do for it. But it's the long game. Like, looking at it as a long game, you're not serving yourself and you're not setting yourself up for success. So
No.
on that topic, I see resignation in your face. There's like, oh my gosh, what?
I had no idea that it was that grand of a scope in between.
Hmm.
And it actually sparks up one more thing. I don't want to get all wah wah, but I will say anytime I did attempt to negotiate more pay, I was always told no.
It wasn't even an option for
It
us.
wasn't even an option because someone else would accept the
The lesser.
contractor. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So I think that is also another thing. As a female, until things change, uh, it's in our best interest to think about what other gifts we have or things that we're passionate about to help ourselves. Because, you know, changing the entire industry overnight, I don't know, but right now, fair or not, it's just very obvious that uh, it would be in our best interest to consider, like you said, not something that takes 40 hours out of your week every week right now while your career is your focus, but some kind of passion project that you can be building, that you love to do, that when the time comes for you to put more energy into it, you've built a great foundation for yourself. Um, and it obviously honestly will just make you breathe easier in the meantime as well, that I just wish that I had had.
Right. It's, how was that? It's when we wait for our outside, our world around us to change, we will change. We will never see change, or we will never, because we will always find something new that should change in order to make it comfortable for us, or another excuse that will, um, help us to, yeah, put the pressure somewhere else. And when I'm just waving to my little boy, he was like, "No, dude, we're in a podcast recording."
What?
And so let's give some tips on how can you, as like, what is something that we could give ourselves, perhaps like 10, 15 years ago, when we are like, let's say, starting out, or are like 25, somewhere settled in a company, whatever that looks like right now. But what are two things you would do from your knowledge that you have today? What would you do differently?
I would be open. I would be open to staying present, but also thinking in terms of my future. So expanding first the upper limits, because I love this, because so much of our behaviors dictate what our upper limits are that we don't necessarily know. So when we start to worry about stuff, worry was my middle name. I was so anxious and I worried about everything. And I worried about money, like a lot. I had more times than I can count swiping a debit card in a store and just praying that it would get approved, like to buy my groceries. Like I lived like that. So um that kind of energy crimps the positive energy of what you said, of tapping into what our genius is. So even though we love what we do as artists, I'm sure there's other passions that we love. Writing, art, doing makeup tutorials on YouTube, whatever it is that like you love to do. If you can expand that curiosity and that creative flow and start to investigate what that would look like if you allowed yourself time to do that, just breaking through either worrying or um, if you another thing is to deflect um, your accomplishments. That's another upper limit. If someone compliments you and you deflect it, if you want to argue, those are all things that, like, to first be aware of maybe the behaviors of the upper limit. And when you notice that, notice why you're there. Like, what are you really worried about? What are you really arguing about? Or what are you really deflecting? Those type of things. And the awareness first is the way to kind of crack that ceiling open a little bit to be able to raise up. And then I love just, I read this, just embracing a new story about who you are and what your abilities are. Because I knew for me too, I also set the story for myself that I didn't have abilities outside of dance, which is so crazy because that is so not true. But I moved into the world of dance, and then I locked everything else out and said, I don't have anything else to give. And I think that we all really do. So to embrace a new story that you are a goddess or a god of your own creation, and what kind of world do you want to create? So first, I would say make a list of what you feel your upper limit behaviors are. So I'll leave another few of them. It could be blame and criticism. It could be making you physically ill, um, and just not keeping agreements, like those type of things. And then when you notice yourself doing those upper limits, expand into a feeling, if you can, of love and abundance, and relax from those, whatever those tension energies are, because that's literally blocking your flow. And then just make more room for that awareness every time it comes up, because as soon as you're aware of something, you can start to eliminate it. And then just keep an attitude of what curiosity and wonder around your days and what you like to do, because it could just start by making your day better and filling your cup because you're doing something else that you love to do outside of rehearsals or outside of your training. And it could just start there. And having no limits on where it could go is where you start. So I would say, this is very long-winded answer. First, make a list of, if you can, observe yourself for the next week and what behaviors come up. Are those behaviors coming up? And identify what those upper limits are first, because if we don't know how we act towards them, we don't know how to start to release them. And then what else? What are your gifts? What do you feel like is part of your genius? And write that down. And if nothing else, just start doing more of those things right now.
Beautiful. I'm going to add my 2 cents to that.
Yeah.
So I 1000% agree. And I'm going to add that in the same token, explore your relationship and your stories with money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, actually have a conversation with yourself. Like, what does it bring up in you? Is it making your heart beat faster? Is it something that you want to avoid at all costs? Or do you hang on to money because you have fear? Is it just sitting in your savings account? Because saving money and making money work for you are two different things.
Yes.
I've been taught to save money, and just where's your saving account? Like, we're so moving away from that. It's more getting back to, okay, let's have the 2-3 grand in cash under your mattress, just in case, and have the rest working for you.
Yeah.
Start investing money, like start learning about it even. So my number one thing would be that I would tell myself, go get a better relationship with money. Like right
Mm.
now, right now. Why don't you ask better questions? Why aren't you looking into it? Why do you think that you are not worthy of earning more? Like, who says that? Who are you believing? Um, because you get to create your own life, nobody else. It's all on you. And you can go and find inspiration nowadays everywhere. Just log into Clubhouse. I mean, the great give the best coaching. Grant Cardone is on there every day. Chris Harder, Lewis House, Lori Harder, they're all on there. Jan Gottlieb. It's amazing. Like, it's a deep, deep rabbit hole. However, it definitely is worth listening to just get a different idea, to get outside of your own bubble that you're being in there. Your thermostat needs raising, and you get that by, well, yeah, raising it yourself and getting inspiration from others. So these are my 2 cents for that. Yeah. Okay. Well, what's on the agenda for this week for you? Do you have anything, like one thing that you want to achieve?
It's not business related,
Good.
but
Well,
this, oh, go ahead.
no. When we're saying it's not business related, I truly believe that we can only step forward in our business as much as we are capable of stepping forward in our personal development. Like, it is in such strong and clear relationships. If you're turmoil and have limiting beliefs in here, that will reflect clearly in your business. So I'm just
Mhm. Yes, I love that. So two things. One is one of my commitments for February is to be physically active and move my body every day. And that might seem funny on this podcast, but the
fine.
last months of my official retirement from performing has been more stationary than I have ever been in my entire life. I really required a reset of my relationship with my body in terms of how I move it and how I treat it. I only, it was in my programming to be very aggressive physically with my body, and I didn't listen. I didn't listen when it needed rest, when it didn't need that extra, few reps, when it wasn't as flexible and pliable that day. And I pulled anyway because you know,
Had to.
said that's what I should be doing. And so I really very seriously took a reset, and that meant be very stationary. And I needed to have that time and that peace and that uh, healing with my regards to my body. So I finally feel like as we entered 2021 and went into January, I felt ready to figure out what a new regimen looked like for me as a regular person. And so now this month, I'm committed to moving my body every single day. And I really have adopted a beautiful, loving relationship with it, to not be so aggressive and not be so mean. Just move with flow and ease. So that's one of them. And then I actually finished this book last Friday, and I started it again today, and I'm going to get through it one more time. It was one of those I really wanted to absorb even more again. So I'm rereading it. It's Infinite Self by Stuart Wilde. And I just love it's 33 Steps to Reclaiming Your Inner Power. And it was such a good book that I just want to absorb double the information. So I will be rereading that this week.
Awesome. I love it.
What
Yeah.
about you?
Okay. So for me this week is, I cleared actually all my schedule. I'm not doing any podcast interviewing. And it's all about creating and listening and getting outside of my comfort zone more, to build what I actually really want to build, and to really listen into these limiting beliefs that are coming up, that are saying, why you, nobody's going to like it, all of these stories. I don't want them anymore. I have reached my upper limit with that. I am my word freedom for the year is becoming so clear. I don't need these anymore. They're not serving me. However, it's not even me, it's something in me that wants to hold on to it just to feel safe. And I'm not going to have it anymore. So
Yeah.
that's my week's, not task, but it really pulling me to not deal with it, but to really be there with it and get through it and get to the other side of it. Because I
Yes.
feel like it's holding me right now a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
kind of an anchor.
Which is a great example of awareness, that you're tuned into those kind of feelings and
Yeah.
those energies. And that's what I love about this journey too, is into awareness. And it stems for all kinds of branches about our life, but you get more in tune to listening to that. And so you become less restrictive. Like I've, the thermostat becomes a lot more flexible. I feel
Yeah.
like we know how to turn it down when we need to and turn it back up. And that's how you keep expanding it,
Mm-hmm.
by doing that without the resistance and just allowing the energy to dictate, what you put your focus on. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Good
right.
at expanding.
Yeah. Well, what else is there?
There is nothing else. If we
Like
don't try,
right, there's like I find so much joy in it now, because I've taken off and we're getting into a little bit of not a ramble here, but I really want to share this because I was so focused on moving in my box that I didn't even give myself the permission to learn.
yeah.
And changing that perspective changed everything. It changed how I interact with myself. It changed the way I love myself. It changed how I interact with everybody else around me. The whole story about perfectionism, blah, it was so heavy. I have to reel myself in every day, though. Like this is not over yet. And it also has given me the permission to, why don't I look into investing? Why don't I learn about it? Why don't I look in way more possibilities out there to make money? Like another passion of mine is real estate. I freaking love real estate. Like in my next life, I'm going to be a real estate agent. I'm going to be everything and around that. Um, but who tells me that I can't learn about it? If I put like 30 minutes a day into it, next year around this time, I can be an expert.
Mhm.
And it's giving myself the permission to take time to, because I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it for me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
So that is where I'm at.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, here we go. Money and art. We went from, I don't know, thermostats to perfectionism.
Hmm.
Um, we really hope that you got something out of this, at least where to start in your process of finding awareness and finding out what your beliefs and stories around yourself and your upper limits are, and where your thermostat actually is at, and what can happen to your ability to perform and your ability to earn when you break through these kind of upper limits. I
Yeah.
actually summed it up. There we go. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Mwah. Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.